Is now down more than 1%. It was trying to be one of only 4 times this month that it has moved less than that amount, 1% up or 1% down. But is this market turmoil in the rearview mirror or not? Joining me now, Craig Columbus is CEO of Columbus Macro, and Chris Zaccarelli is Chief Investment Officer of the Independent Advisor Alliance. Welcome to both of you. Craig, what do you think? I know it's tough to, opine on all of this, but when people come to you and ask, look, is this a temporary clearing? Are we about to, take another nasty leg lower? Do you have any kind of gut feel for that?
Well, I think there are some positives. The policy response, the size and speed were both impressive. The fact that we've got the gears of the market working on dollar funding and on repo. But I will say you got to be a little bit patient. Think about this crisis, pandemic, different from SARS, different from H1N1, and different from Spanish flu, all in the sense that those all happened at the end of bear markets. We were making the all-time highs in February. So the difference is those all had excess wrung out of those markets. Now here, we're going to have a slowdown. You're going to have to delever, and deleveraging is a process that takes time.
So in other words, you're saying this market, this economy was ripe for deleveraging. It's not like we've already gone through it. This is going to sort of force us to go through it. So what does that look like? How much longer does that play out?
Correct. So that's after 11 years of a bull market and lots of debt, financial conditions are tightening. So that is going to be probably a multi-year process where you're going to be more range bound. But I think obviously getting some positive things on the virus will help. Getting an additional stimulus, which is probably going to come for sure to help the local and county governments, that's going to be a positive. But the deleveraging just takes time. Okay.
And I know, Chris, that there are specific things you're avoiding as you kind of put capital into the market right now. You said you're avoiding the value traps in places like energy, and you're avoiding index funds. Why?
Well, what we've seen so far is this broad-based sell-off, and you're heading into a recession. And in that case, you want to make sure you're very careful about which companies you own. So for those companies that can make it through a recession, quality companies, good balance sheets, assets and short-term cash that they can use to make all of their payments through the recession, that's the most important thing. I don't believe this is the time that you want to own all the stocks in the index. It makes more sense to be selective and make sure that you're looking for those kinds of companies that are going to make it through this period if it does turn out to be a protracted recession.
Is there a way people can do that on their own? I realize I'm sort of asking you to talk against your book a little bit here, but you know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people just feel more comfortable doing an index fund. It's low cost. They say, I don't know which companies to pick.
Sure, and I think that makes sense, and you're exactly right. I'm talking about professional investors, people who are using financial advisors. They have some help. If you're a do-it-yourselfer at home, then probably an index fund would make more sense. I'm just saying if you have the option of working with someone who has a little bit more knowledge, that may be a better way to go, because this may be one of those times where having an index and owning all companies, both those well-positioned to make it through the crisis and those that are not so well-positioned, isn't as ideal.
Interesting, and that kind of brings up energy in particular, which you refer to as a value trap. Would you add things there? I guess I'm asking you, would energy and financials go in the same category right now as things like airlines and cruise ships?
Well, to be clear, we were saying we're trying to avoid those value traps that we're finding within the energy sector, industrial sector, and material sector. We don't believe that all energy companies are value traps. We just think that sector is ripe with those companies which are. So in general, yes, you're looking for those well-capitalized companies, the ones that are going to make it through this crisis. And in every sector, you can find those companies which are better positioned. We would just say within those sectors specifically, you've got to be even more careful than you would in other sectors. As far as financial services are concerned, we're actually in much better shape as a banking system right now than obviously anything we were in during the financial crisis, and that's the good news. Despite the fact that this is going to be a huge stress test, there's going to be a lot of pressure put on the banks and the rest of the economy, we believe that financials, for the most part, especially those large capitalized banks, are actually relatively safe. We don't think there are value traps in the financial sector like there are in potentially the energy sector.
Okay.